Welcome to my video. This video is going to be on the use of Pandas for data analysis. Pandas is a Python library extensively used for data cleaning, exploring, and manipulation. It allows for importing and exporting tabular data from multiple sources like Excel, CSV, HTML into Python data frames. So today I have an e-commerce purchase exercise with some fake data about purchases done through Amazon. We want to analyze this data to understand consumer behavior. We will follow the directions given in the notebook below to complete the task. So the first step is to import the Pandas library. I'm also going to import the NumPy library along with it. So import NumPy as NP and import Pandas as PD. Next up, I have to read an e-commerce purchase CSV file which is available in the same folder where this notebook is. And I'm just going to load it into the Python notebook. So the way to do that is to use pd.readcsv and then start typing with the name of the notebook you have and press tab. That will autofill uh, the name of the CSV file available in the folder, or if there are multiple files which starts with the same letters, then it will give you all the options available and you can choose from there. Now I am going to check the head of the data frame. So here, if you are using the head method, by default it will give you 5 rows. If you want more or less number of rows, you can put that integer here. For example, if I use 3, it will return just first 3 rows from index 0 to 2. But I will go back to the original 5 rows. So this is the head of the data frame we have. If you look at it, it seems like we have some data here with different columns. Now remember, this is a purchase data from Amazon. So what we have here is we have an address column, we have a lot, then AM or PM signifying if the shopping was done in the AM or PM. Then we have browser info, company, credit card number, credit card expiration date, security code, and credit card provider. Now remember, this is makeup data, so don't worry about stealing anyone's data. Now then we have email address of the shopper, what job they do, their IP address, language they purchase or language of the Amazon site on which they purchase, and the purchase price in the end. So let's go ahead. Next up, we have to check how many rows and columns there are. So there are a couple of methods of doing this. We could directly use the rows and columns method as well, or there is another way of directly checking the info which will return all the available information about the data frame. So just type ecom.info and it will return an information like this. Says this is a data frame which has range index of 10,000 entries ranging from 0 to 9,999, and in total it has 14 columns. The name of all the columns are mentioned here, how many non-null values are there, and it looks like all of the cells in this data frame have some value or the other, because I don't see any non-null values here. Actually there are 10,000 non-null values in all of these. We don't see any null values here, and the data type for each of the column is also given here. Looks like the credit card number is an integer, security code is an integer, and the purchase price is a float. Obviously it's in decimal. Other than that, all of the other columns have object as data type. Now these are obviously strings, uh, which is available as object. Next we have to figure out what is the average purchase price. Before doing that, let's take another look at the data set. So here we have a column with the purchase price, and we have to figure out the average of this purchase data. So we could use the mean method here to find the average of this column. First select the column dot mean, and so the average of all the values in that column is $50.34. Next up we have to find what were the highest and lowest purchase price. So similarly, here we calculated the average using the mean method. Now we want the highest and lowest, and for that we will use the max and min method. So the maximum purchase price was $99.9 and minimum was 0. We could also find the index position of those rows where we have the max and min purchase price. For that we will use the arguments argmax and argmin. I will show you. So the maximum purchase price of $99.9 was in the row with index 2092. And the minimum purchase price was in the row, or rather in the index row index 2876. Next up is how many people have English as their language of choice on the website. So let's take another look at the data frame. So here we have a language column which looks like it has some languages like EL, FR, and we have to find how many people have English as their language. So before doing that, one thing we will do is check out all of the unique values in this column and also the frequency of each of the unique values, and for that we could use a value count, or we could also use unique and the length method. With that I will show you both. So this unique method returns all of the unique value in that column. Now by checking the length of this one dimensional array, we can get the total number of unique values, 9. The other way of doing this is using the n unique method, which will directly return the total number of unique values in this column. Now what we are going to do is do a value count. So this method will list out all of the unique values in that column and the number of times that occur, that is their frequency. So we see for English there are total 1098 members. We could take the answer from here, but there is another way of doing this as well, a better way. I will show you. What we are going to do is use filter in that language column to filter it down just to the English language. If we use this conditional statement, this will return a true or false for each of the rows in that column based on if that string is en or not. Now when we pass this within the data frame, it will return only the rows where the value is true, and for the rows where the value is false, that will be omitted from the data frame. Pass this within the data frame. So as you can see, all of the languages here are English only. So it has been filtered for that language, and you can check the index. It is not continuous. That means it has filtered the data frame for only the rows where the language is English. Now we can simply do a count of all of these rows, and that will give us that for all of these 14 columns there are 1098 data in the rows, and so that is our answer. And if you remember, it matches with our value count methods as well. Next up, we have to check how many people have their job title of lawyer. So similar to the previous question, we are going to use a filter in the job title, and we are going to filter it down only to the rows which have lawyer as their job title. Let's check the data frame once again. Here we have the job column, and we can see some of the job titles as scientist, product, process development, drilling engineers, customer service manager, and others. What we are going to do is to filter it down to just this string lawyer, and pass this within the data frame. And so it will return only the rows where the job is lawyer. Now to figure out how many people there are, we can just do a simple count. So there are a total of 30 lawyers in that data set. Next up, we have to check how many people made the purchase during the AM and how many people made the purchase during the PM. So just similar to the last two questions, we could use filter to check to filter the data set down to AM or PM and then take a count, or we could also use the value counts method which I showed earlier, that will directly return the frequency of each variable, or rather each string within that column. So our column is AM or PM. Dot value counts, and see it returns a series where the index is AM and PM, and it gives the frequency of each. That is how many times each of these occurs in that data frame. Next up is what are the 5 most common job titles. So when I use the value counts, I'm going to show you once again. See, when we use this value count method, it not only returns the frequency of each of the string in that column, it also arranges it in a descending manner. And we could check this within the signature here. See, there are different parameters given here. We have a ascending parameter as well, which is false. So what this false denotes is the parameter is actually descending. It is arranging the values from highest to lowest order, and so therefore we know that the interior and spatial designer comes 31 times in this data set, which is the highest. Next is lawyer, which is 30. Then social researcher. We wanted the 5 most common job titles, so we could just do a head of this series, and there is our job titles: interior and spatial designer, lawyer, social researcher, purchasing manager, designer, and jewelry. Someone made a purchase that came from lot 90 WT. What was the purchase price for this transaction? So let's check for this. So here we have a column for lot. We have to filter that for just the lot which says 90 WT, and we have to check the purchase price for that. So as you see there is only one row which has the lot as 90 WT, and the purchase price there is $75.1. Now just to get this value, we could just index it for this column, the purchase price. And there is our value. The index is 513 and the dollar value is 75.1. Next up is what is the email of the person with the following credit card number. So similarly, just like the last problem, we are going to filter the data set for this particular credit card number, and then we will index it for the email ID. Now here we have to check if the credit card number was a string or a integer or float. So we can go back where we check the information of this data frame, and in the info column we can see that the credit card was an integer. So the significance of that is how we put the value of an integer versus a string. For a string we have to use the commas, inverted commas, but for integer we will directly use the number. And pass this within the data frame. And we needed the email of this credit card number. Yeah. The email is a string, therefore it has to go within the inverted commas. And there is our answer. Next up is how many people have American Express as their credit card provider. So we will do one thing. We will first check for all the credit card providers, and then we will filter it for American Express. And the second part of the question is and made a purchase above $95. So we have two conditions here. The credit card provider should be American Express and the purchase made should be more than $95. There are two ways of combining multiple conditions based on if those are and conditions or conditions. I will show you when we reach there. First up, we will check for credit card provider. Econ.head. So we have the CC provider here. We will do a value count for that column. So we have all of the credit card providers listed here and with their frequency, that is how many times do they occur in the data set. So here we see we have American Express for 849. So what we will do here is we will use this filter with American Express and pass this within the data frame. So now our data frame. So as we can see in our data frame, it has been filtered for only the rows which has CC provider as American Express. But we have a second condition as well, and that is for purchase made above $95. So if we go to the right of the data frame to the purchase price column, there are different values. Some of those are above 95 and most of those are below $95. So we have to use a second condition here. And the way to do that is use an and or condition with this given conditions. Now generally in Python, the way to do that, the syntax is this: first condition within bracket and then use and with second condition within brackets. But for the and, we cannot use the and operator here, as this a and d and operator or operator or can only be used with singular values. When we do and or when we use and or operator with the truth series, the Python gets confused and is not able to return a single answer for that. What we can use in place of and is the and symbol, this one, or we could use the pipe symbol that signifies the and or operator within the conditional selections. So here we are going to use the and signal because we want the rows for the users who have both the American Express as their credit card provider and have made a purchase above $95. Now we have both CC provider as American Express and the purchase price above $95. We have to figure out how many of these people are there. So we will just do a simple count method. So in total there were 39 people who use both the American Express credit card and use it to make a purchase of above $95. Next up is how many people have a credit card that expires in 2025. Let's check the head of this data frame once again. Here, as we can see in the CC expiry date column, we have the date as 02/20. So this is given as a string. What we could do is separate out this string in a new column with just the last two values, which is the year, and we will need to filter it for 25. So the way to add a new column in a data frame is to call it like it already exists, like this. We will name it the expiry date, and we will use this column to change it into a value which only has the last two values from this string. So we'll take this column. Now we will use the apply method. Apply method is used to apply any formula or any function to this column in a data frame. So we have to put the function, the axis is 0, so it goes row by row, and there are other parameters, you can check that as well. For the function, we will make a lambda expression. Lambda expression is used for a temporary function without uh, defining it, without naming it, and without giving it a temporary name. We could directly just use x, that is for that particular temporary variable, whatever we want it to be. So for example, if it was an integer and we wanted the square of this integer, we, we would use it like this. So it would multiply this value with just it is. So if it was 900 here, it would return the square of 900, that would be 81,000. Let's check this one. Okay, because it is a string, it is not returning anything. So we'll go back. Now there are two ways I can do this. Because this is a string, what we could do is index it from, if we index it. So here what we will do is we will take this string and we will split it with this slash, and what this will do is it will return a list with the numbers before the slash and after the slash. So there would be two elements in the list with 0, 2, and next element would be 20. What we need is the second element, which would be at index 1 within the list. So we will index it for the second element, which is at index 1. This will return just this 20 in that new column, 18 for second row, 19 for third row, 24 for the fourth row, and so on. Now let's check our data frame. So in this data frame, as we can see in this new column expiration date, we have got the year for each of the columns, for each of the rows rather, and we now just need to filter it for the expiration date, which is 25, and take a sum of all the rows, or rather the count. This is a string, so we have to do it like this within inverted commas. value of 25 but as a string. We could just take the count of this and it will return our answer. See, so in total there are 1033 rows for each of the column. So that is our answer. To be more specific, we could just take the answer count of that particular column. There is another way of doing this. I will show you that, where rather than splitting on the slash, as it is a string, we are going to index it. We know the string has 5 characters in all of the rows, so we are going to index it for the fourth and fifth character. That would be at index 3 and 4. Use lambda function temporary variable x, and what we will do is with this value we are not going to split but index it. If we count the index, it would be 0 1 2 3 4. So we are going to take everything after third index, index 3. And we get the same value here because it starts with index 3 and goes all the way. That is 20 here, 18 here. Remember, this is a string, so we will use the same line again to get the count of all the rows which has that expiration date as 25. And we get the same answer here. Now for the last question, we have to figure out what are the top 5 most common, most popular email providers, as for example gmail.com, yahoo.com, etc. So we have all the email addresses here in this email column. We have to split it at the rate and then take the email provider. So we will add a new column to this data frame for email provider. And we will use the email column to split and put this email host in that column. Use the apply method with lambda expression. So here we can see what the split does is splits the email at this value, at this character, and returns a list. We only want the email provider which would be at index 1 for all of these. Now we will do a value count for this column and take the top 5 ones. And our 5 most popular email providers are Hotmail, Yahoo, Gmail, Smith and Williams.com. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.